What's going on, kids? Today we're going to take a look at two different methods of tire repair. The first one is going to be using a kit that you can get at AutoZone or Napa or any other parts store that you can use at home. And then the second one is going to be the internal plug and patch that they use at dealerships and other tire repair places. So this is essentially the stuff that you get when you buy one of those kits from a parts store. You get some rubber cement, a couple of the actual tire repair plugs, and then two tools. This first one is going to be a reamer that we're going to put in through the hole that our screw came out of, and then we can enlarge in that hole so that we can actually fit the plug into it. And then this is the tool that we're going to use to actually slide the plug down into the tire. We got some rubber cement here too to make sure that it all holds. And obviously this is kind of what I buy in bulk. So when you buy a kit, you're just going to get a little tube of rubber cement to use. So the first step is always going to be to locate the actual puncture on your tire. So this is a tire off of my truck, and we can spin this around and find there's a screw in it. A lot of times you're not going to see the head of the screw because you may have driven on it so long that it's going to wear down, or maybe you pick up a nail and then it comes out and then you have a significantly larger leak. But really the important thing is where that puncture is on the tire, because not all punctures can be repaired. If the nail or whatever is here in the middle of the tread, in this section here, the tire can be repaired. But if the puncture or damage is on this kind of outside shoulder or definitely on the sidewall, the tire cannot be repaired because the load that goes to the tire under normal driving will work the plug out and it's just going to leak again. So only in the middle of the tire can you repair. So to find the leak, if you don't just have a brand new screw sticking out of it, there's a couple of different methods that you can use. I usually use a spray bottle with some soapy water. This is Simple Green. And you can kind of spray that down and then look for bubbles. The screw's in there pretty good. So this is a super slow leak. I could then let this sit for an hour or so, come back, and I would see a whole bunch of tiny little bubbles kind of building up and volcanoing out of this. Another option that you have is we have a dunk tank over by the shop door that you can actually submerge the whole tire in. All right, now that the compressor's off, there's a dunk tank over by the shop doors that you can submerge the whole tire in and kind of spin it around to look and see where bubbles are coming from. That one kind of only goes halfway up the tire, so you kind of spin it like this. Others, like larger tire shops, just have a whole tank you can dunk the whole tire in. That way you can check for leaks on the tread, but also kind of around the bead seat here. That's another super common place for leaks. And also around the valve stem itself. We'll get into taking a look at the valve stems and stuff when we do the internal plug and patch on this tire later. The first one that we're going to do is just one of those rope plugs. I consider those to be temporary fixes. That's kind of something that you should do to get you to the tire shop. You can have that in your car, try and get it to a gas station if it's not super low, put the plug in, fill it up to pressure, and then you can drive on it for a little bit. I do know people that have driven on those rope plugs for an extended period of time. It's not something that I would recommend. The internal plug and patch that we're going to do is going to bring this thing back to basically like new, and I've driven on internal patch and plugs for years and years and years. I've even raced on internal patch and plugs, and they've helped. So the first thing that we're going to do is remove the screw, and we need to make sure that this screw is going in straight. If the puncture is at an angle or going in sideways, that you cannot repair the tire. It's got to be a straight through puncture. So we're going to remove this screw. There you can see the bubbles coming out. We got a lot more air. And then I'm going to grab this reaming tool so that I can put this directly in the hole so that way my tire doesn't go flat. While you're doing the repair, you need to have some air in the tire. Otherwise, when you're trying to push the reamer through or you're trying to push the plug through, the tire's just going to collapse on you. So having an air compressor around is not a bad idea. So we've got the reamer tool in here kind of blocking this hole. And then I'm going to stand over the tire like this and run this down in through the puncture. So we send the reamer in, and you're going to bring it back and forth. And then the gnarled edge on this is going to kind of round out that hole from the screw, and that way it gives us a nice smooth place for the plug to go in. The next we grab our rubber cement. We want to put some rubber cement around the hole and then use the reamer to push this rubber cement down inside so that when we put the plug in, there's some glue to hold it in place. And next it's time to get our plug onto the other tool. So this is going to be a little fiddly to try and thread one of these plugs through the tool, but if you look, there's an eye on here, kind of like the eye of a needle, but then there's an open spot here at the top. So we're going to put the plug halfway through this and then fold it up so we can put it into the tire, and then when we pull this tool back out of the tire, the plug actually comes through this little opening, and that's what's going to leave the plug in the tire after we've removed the tool. So you can watch me fumble with this for the next 30 seconds to try and thread this in here. Oh, that wasn't terrible. So, gonna pull this through so it's kind of halfway through, and then you're gonna fold this back up onto the tool itself. I'm wearing gloves. You don't want to touch this. The adhesive will come off of it. It's really just a bunch of like rubber strings and then some nasty sticky glue. So it shouldn't be too bad. Now we need to pull out the reaming tool and put this into the tire. We're back over at the tire, and now I need to remove this reaming tool and then put our plug back in its place. So I'm going to remove this and quickly put that back down into the hole before all the air rushes out. And then I kind of stand over the tire and then with a straight arm push down with all of my body weight until the plug is all the way in the tire. But you want to leave about a half inch or so of the actual plug sticking out of the top. If you push super hard and send the whole tool and the plug inside the tire, when you remove the tool, the plug just is rolling around inside. So we push down and we stop, when there's about a half inch or so sticking out, and then we remove the tool, and there's our kind of quick and easy rope plug. Usually verify the repair. I guess you should always verify the repair. So we can spray this back down with some Simple Green and make sure there's no bubbles. You can cut off a little bit of this excess, and then this tire is good to go back on the car, set the pressures, and then start making your way over to a tire repair shop to do the next step, which is internal patch and plug. So we've got the tire off of the wheel now, and we can look inside and see what that rope plug looks like from the inside. So it's really just that rope kind of sticking in here as a piece of rubber that's going to plug that hole. Our internal plug and patch is going to not only plug the hole like our rope plug did, but there's also a patch on the bottom that we're going to glue into this tire so that it's kind of an extra layer of protection. And this is what's going to get this tire back to a condition that we can drive on it indefinitely until the tread wears down or the tire is otherwise kind of done. Instead of using the hand reamer for everything, we've got power tools now. So this looks like a gnarly dentist drill, but this is going to do all of the work of moving the reamer in and out to kind of make sure the hole in our tire is round and that our plug will fit. We've got this for cleaning up the inside of the tire so that our patch has a clean surface to grab onto. And then we've got a scraper for moving all of the bits of kind of rubber out after we have sanded everything down smooth. And then we've got this kind of ravioli roller looking thing that we're going to use to run over the plug in order to push all the air bubbles out. But let's go ahead and rip that old plug out of there and get this tire prepped so that we can do our proper patch and plug repair. So I've got the tire up on the rack, and I need to send this kind of nasty dentist drill in through this hole and make sure that that hole is coming through straight. Because remember, if your puncture is going in at an angle, it can't be repaired. That plug needs to go relatively straight. So this is going to be much larger than any nail, hopefully, that you've picked up. And if it is kind of at a slight angle, this will at least straighten it out so that you can put the plug in properly. And now I need to deal with kind of this surface here, if you could actually feel inside here, and I'm not sure it picks it up on camera, but there's almost like a shine to this. So that's some of the mold release that was in this tire when it was made. We need to get rid of that and also get rid of this textured surface so that our plug can go through and our patch can sit flat on clean rubber and not give air a path to escape. And that's why we use this tool. So this looks like something that a gnarly podiatrist would have, but we're gonna put this in and move this around and just take off that top layer of rubber until the tire has like a velvety surface. We don't need to go crazy deep. If we go through to the point where we see metal, that's too far. So you should definitely stop. Hopefully you don't go down that deep, but if you do, it's kind of not the end of the world as long as you don't destroy those metal cords that are running through the tire. And as long as we have an area that's large enough for us to put our patch on, we can put that tool away. So once we're done kind of shaving all of this mold release off, we need to get rid of all of these little bits of rubber that have collected inside the tire. So we're gonna use the scraper and kind of run this down and get all of those rubber shavings out of the way. Once that's all clean, we can apply our rubber cement. The rubber cement's gonna go directly onto the tire and that whole area that we have cleaned. And now we prep our plug. So the plug has protective film on the back side and the top side of the patch that we need to remove. And then there's this metal kind of spike that we're gonna send through the hole in the tire. When we pull this the rest of the way through the tire, this metal kind of point will come off. So we'll open this thing up and be careful not to touch the actual rubber surface. And yes, this is incredibly fiddly. And I usually end up bending something when I'm doing this. So again, trying to not touch the actual patch surface. So we can pull this off and send the spike first through the hole. And then I'm going to use a pair of pliers. Happens to be a pair of welding pliers that I was able to find first. Don't mind that, nothing happened, everything's fine. So I'm gonna grab the welding pliers here and pull this spike the rest of the way through the tire. All right, so we're gonna pretend that my iPad didn't just fall off the table and actually break that time. So now you have significantly better video quality with a Pixel. There's the inside, and you can see our patch is laying flat on there, and the rubber cement that we laid down is outside that patch. And if I pull on the plug from the other side, you can see that it's kind of all the way down there. I'm getting that little dimple. So now we can just use a clean finger and make sure that the edge of our patch is laid down smooth. And we're going to use that ravioli roller to kind of run this up and down and squeeze out any air bubbles that we may have gotten in our patch. That looks pretty good. And now it's time for our security coat. The security coat is in this bottle here with all of this black kind of rubber on the outside of it from, it just making a mess. But inside, this security coat is actually gray. So if we take this off, see, this stuff's pretty sticky. There we go. Take off the lid, and we can see that the actual security coat is gray. When it dries into that black, shiny surface. So we are going to take this paintbrush and just paint around the edges of our patch. We don't have to cover the whole thing because air is not going to go through the plug itself. We just need to go around, or through the patch itself. We just need to go around the outside. So we'll paint this on. Make sure we cover all of our edges. And then this is going to become shiny and black when it's dry. So now that our security coat has dried and we don't see any more gray, we can go back over the top of this with bead sealer. Now this isn't something that's kind of in the directions that I have up on the wall, but it's just something that I do because we have it, and kind of better safe than sorry when it comes to this stuff. So we're just going to paint this down around our edges the same way we did that security coat. We'll give this a few minutes to dry, and then we can cut the little rubber nub off the other side of the tire. Go ahead and put this on the mounting and balancing machines and put it back on the car. Get this thing back on the road. So once your tire is all back together, you of course want to spray it down again with some soapy water to verify the repair. But whether you're doing just a super quick patch and plug in your garage, or you're doing an internal patch and plug, it's really not that big of a deal as long as you follow the proper steps and make sure that when you're done, it's not leaking anymore. If you have any questions, feel free to shoot me an email. Otherwise, be good, and I will see you next time.